Hi everyone, welcome to episode 112 of The Green Life. In today's episode, I have the amazing Dr. Christiane Northrup joining us, and I'm so excited about having this conversation with her because she's amazing. So this is kind of a follow-up conversation to my solo last week and also two more interviews I did with her in the past, so I will link everything in the show notes for you to check out. We talked about menopause, we talked about energy vampires, and today kind of everything came together to see why women feel in a certain way right now, what we're going through, what we want to achieve. There is so much to talk about. Doing it in just an hour or just over an hour has been really challenging, but I hope that you get a lot out of it. Now, before we go into the episode, a big shout out to Nama Well. Their products are amazing. If you love juicing and you want to get a good juicer, please get it from them. And I have a discount code for you in the show notes, as well as Dr. Morse's Herbs for a great cleanse, and you can talk to me about that, as well as Window Workshop and New Zest, which are two brands I not only support but use myself. So if you want to know more, guys, all you have to do is go into the show notes, grab the discounts, and if you buy from my link, you are definitely supporting my podcast, and I thank you very, very much, because as we grow, I can actually invite more and more amazing people. Aside from that, if you want to work with me, learn more about my work and projects, go onto my website, also into the show notes, and follow me on social media. I promise you, no spamming, just a lot of good info, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, let's dive into this conversation. Welcome, Dr. Northrup. Hello, Dr. Northrup. How are you today? Thank you for being back on The Green Life.
Thank you. I'm great today. All is well. Yep.
Perfect. So we had a couple of very interesting conversations. The first one we talked about, we had on the podcast was about menopause, and then we had energy vampires, which was such a good segue because a lot of women find themselves to feel like they're getting drained. And I like to take this the first two conversations to the next level in this episode. What I like to talk about, what happens to us as women as we get through in our 40s and upwards through perimenopause and menopause, like two very different cycles of our lives that are very poorly understood by the medical system. But there's also an emotional part of it that I like to discuss with you, especially when it comes down to like relationships and especially divorces. I have been speaking to a lot of my clients, a lot of women. I myself have been going through quite a lot in my personal life, and I feel like it's really like the season, and I don't know if it's partly because of our hormones changing, partly because we're growing, but there is definitely a shift, and I'm sure that where we are ethereally into this time also makes a difference. So everybody knows you that is listening to my podcast, I'm quite sure, but just in case they're actually tuning in for the first time now, can we give them a little short version of the last two episodes, which are linked in the show notes, about you and your career and what took you to work with women so wonderfully?
Well, what happened for me when I was on the board of the American Holistic Medical Association, I was asked to speak on PMS. Okay, so premenstrual syndrome. But as I began to learn about it, I also realized that there were seasons of our lives that reflected the monthly thing, the lunar cycle, then becomes the annual cycle. So I say seasonal affective disorder is the PMS of the annual calendar. And then perimenopause is kind of like the PMS of your entire life. And what that means is this, and I learned long ago, like way back in the 80s, that it was easy to get rid of the symptoms. Easy. You did this with your diet and you exercised and all of that. But you could not maintain the changes if your life force was still being parasited from other things. So I have come to see that there is a system, and you can call it whatever you want. You can call it the matrix, but there's a system that is constantly competing for our life force, like a parasite in the body. And there are energetic parasites, and there are physical parasites that we know about more and more and more. And this is like finally coming to the fore. So what we talked about before was the hormonal changes, and the hormonal changes of the regular cycle when you're in your 30s, let's say, like the week before your period. The veil between your conscious and your unconscious is thinner, and everything that isn't working in your life comes to hit you in front of your eyes. And if you don't pay attention to those cyclic opportunities to upgrade your frequency, then you hit perimenopause when estrogen can or cannot fall, it depends. But progesterone, absolutely, when you start to skip ovulations. And progesterone is a warming, calming hormone. When you don't have that, in the face of excess estrogen from skipping ovulations and stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, you literally take your estrogen and make it into another stress hormone. And so we blame all this. Okay, we say, well, it's my hormones, and it's perimenopause. And it's like, no, yes, that's true, but it's your life. It's your life, and your hormones are in service to the blueprint of your soul inside of you. So at about age 42, astrologically, that's the Uranus opposition in everybody, men too. And it says, literally, grow or die. Now, in medicine, regular medicine, we say, oh, well, now that you are whatever, 40, you need to get all these screening tests because your chance of getting these diseases goes up. And then we're just seen as an aging body now susceptible to all of these problems. And what I want everyone to know is that doesn't need to be your reality. Is it the reality for millions? Absolutely. Why? Here's why. Because you put the power for your life outside of you, like Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And the real power, as Carolyn Mace, the famous medical intuitive, said, the real power is behind our eyes. It's how we're thinking. So, our job here is to get the power where it belongs, back inside body, mind, spirit, soul. And in the last 4 years have been an incredible opportunity for all of us, really all of us. I mean, before I'd talk about all these things, and most people could get by in their lives with kind of going along. But now we're beginning to realize who's been pulling the strings of our lives in the medical system, the financial system, the food system, the pharmaceutical system, all of those different systems. And here's the fun part. We have the ability to override those systems. Does it take work? Is it easy? No. Like you mentioned, the dark night of the soul. And what you find, okay, so this is, we're in the season of Sagittarius now, but we were in Scorpio. So I want to, in the Northern Hemisphere. What is Scorpio? What are the areas that Scorpio rules? The underworld, the underworld. But what's under the ground? All the things we value: water, gold, silver, gemstones, oil. That's the realm of Pluto, the underworld. When you go through a dark night of the soul, you're actually mining the riches that are going to fuel you through the next part of your life. So I want to talk for a minute about those who have gone through a divorce. I personally went from a household of 5 to just me within a month. In January of 1999, which happened right after I was on Oprah for the first time. Now, back then, being on Oprah was like, whoa, and it really literally changed my life overnight, but not in a way that I wanted. I wanted my marriage to be healed. I wanted, all of that stuff. And Carolyn Mace used to say, it's a day at the beach for an angel to wipe out a job and a career. And so here I was with, just been on Oprah, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, all the rest of it. And suddenly I am alone in the deep winter with snow halfway up my windows, alone, really, for the first time, frankly, in my life. My oldest had gone off to college. My youngest went off to a semester living in a cabin on the coast of Maine called Chewonki. And I had to come home to myself. That's what this is about, everybody, the divorces and all of that. The reason people don't do it is that you have to go places deep inside that you've probably tried to avoid your whole life.
True.
And we want it to look good, right? So we want it to look like like a good Instagram feed, and we want to have the camera angles right. And I mean, the one thing about social media, like, what has it done? It's done incredible amounts for us to even talk, and I love that, and then to amplify our voice. But like money is a force multiplier. It will multiply whatever you are. It'll make it better, or it'll make it bigger, not necessarily better. And so what a divorce does, what perimenopause does, it puts your life under a microscope. It really, really does. And so, and then the other thing is, you come to grips with the fact that your parents are actual people. They're people and they have weaknesses, and you finally see what they're really like. It was during this time that I wrote Mother-Daughter Wisdom, and I did a whole download on my mother, and there were wonderful parts, but that's not what needs to be healed. It's, I want to quote a friend of mine, an energetic osteopath, and she says, all of our trauma is held in storage in the bioelectric field around our bodies and in our tissues. And it's held there in storage. Now, this is Jess Bell's quote. It's held there in storage as gold for the evolution of the soul. That's the part I want to get through to people. Stuff doesn't happen in the body randomly. It's always biosymbolic. What are we told? Let's just take the breasts now. Let's take the breasts. Okay. So we're told, okay, October is the pinker than thou month, and, give money to breast cancer research. By the way, what has all that money done? Think about all the times you gave an extra $1 at the hairdresser and for breast cancer research. Has that done one single thing to prevent breast cancer? Nothing. And what I would say to your readers, next time you're asked to give to these worthy causes, if you were to look at those worthy causes under the microscope, you would be horrified. Now, I don't need to name them here, except for the breast cancer ones that are doing nothing. Most of the others are doing nothing. They're keeping it going. And the more and then now I want to bring this thing up. Your attention, your energy is currency. It is, it literally is a force. It's a life force that dark forces live off of. That's a big wake-up call for people. What? Like what? And then we make all these excuses. I recently, over the Thanksgiving holiday, I watched J.D. Vance's life story, Hillbilly Elegy. Fascinating story, because you get to watch his alcoholic mother draining the life out of the whole family over and over and over until finally her mother, played by Glenn Close, and I mean masterful, says to JD, who's going down the tubes, you're coming to live with me. And no more excuses. And she's, boundaries, and we're not going to enable your mother, my daughter, anymore. And it saved his life. So we need to save our own lives during this time. So what I want you to do, anyone listening who's going through this dark night, and by the way, we are, because we had Pluto in Capricorn for 20 years. Now, what that is power over. That's a hierarchical structure, and I'm up here, the King of England, whatever, and you're down here, and you're a serf, and I am the king, or I am the Pope, and you're a miserable sinner. It's all of that stuff. What happens when you hit bottom, as it were, when you hit bottom, when you're alone in January, looking around, learning that a divorce is a lawsuit?
Mm.
Whoa. I mean, I'll never forget learning that. It's like, what? What? I mean, I've been married to this person for 24 years and I love him. And now someone has to pick who the victim is and who the perpetrator is. Like,
Yeah.
really? That's the whole legal system, by the way. It's not, okay, this is important. It's not about justice. It's not about justice. It's not about what really happened. I learned that long before because I had lawsuits in my practice, which frankly every OBGYN has. Because, if a baby's not perfect, that's your fault.
Yeah.
That's not what she ate or what she smoked or what she drank, or it's not that. It's your fault. So when you realize that it's just about compensating someone, whatever, there's no justice. But now here's the big jewel here. If you can change it inside yourself,
Mm-hmm.
what you see outside of yourself changes. But it's not what the New Age taught us. Just put it on your vision board. Just put it up there, look at it. Now, that is part true. It's partly true. But there's another part that is not true. And that is in the New Age stuff, which I have always loved. It's all the light, but you never go to the underworld of Pluto, you see.
Mm.
You can't do the spiritual bypass. You can't have, or in Christianity, you can't sit at the right hand of the Father. You can't have the kingdom life without the crucifixion.
Yeah.
It's not possible because we learn the most at the foot of the cross.
Mm.
Yeah. And so that's what I think humanity is going through at this point. But a woman's body goes through it organically. And so I want everyone to understand that if you can be, all right, there's a term that I love, which is suffering is inevitable. Misery is optional.
Yeah.
And misery is how we think. It's oh my God, at my age, it's too late to, all the good men are taken. Let me be very clear. After my divorce, okay, because, no one's ever thought this before, but after my divorce, I thought, well, the answer to all of my problems would be meeting the right man who would just take care of everything. That's the fairy tale, okay? And so that's the fantasy, but you can live the dream. There's the fantasy and then there's the dream. Right now, most single people, not most, but many are doing online dating.
Yeah.
And it's a chance to meet wonderful people. So let's take online dating. It's a great example of a force multiplier. Are there wonderful people doing online dating? You bet there are. There are wonderful people. Are there grifters with skills than you can imagine? Absolutely. And there's a certain group of men. Now I'm just going to talk about, heterosexual. That's my area. I know about that area. But there's a certain group that after menopause, they're looking for a sugar mama. And the psychopaths know. Now, remember, when I wrote Dodging Energy Vampires, what I said is these types have malignant intuition.
Hmm.
They know exactly what you want to hear. Exactly. And they can paint the picture and put you in it, and you go, oh, God, thank God. And then what they do over time is they'll take your energy, they'll take your money, they'll take your body, they'll take everything and leave you empty. What is the one thing they're looking for? This is really important, everybody. That's the crux of everything. They're looking for your soul because they don't have one.
Wow.
I mean, I didn't realize that what we were going through the past 4 years was biblical. I had no idea. I didn't know till I read Ephesians. We battle not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities of darkness that are not of this world. Bingo. See, I knew about the personality disorders. I just didn't know about this other realm that, I met Pastor Dave Bryan, who's a deliverance guy, and he's something. This guy really says there are demonic attachments on people, and you can't get rid of them until you're willing to put the power behind your eyes, not in front. Like you have the power through your connection with God to live in the kingdom, which is where it's you and God are co-creating.
Yeah.
Where the new age fell off the truck is self-will. It's self-will. I want that house, I want that man, I want that body, and I have the power to have all of that. And guess what? You do. You do. But if you do it without God, it will have no foundation whatsoever. And that's what the Bible meant when it says, you build your foundation on a rock,
Yeah.
not the sand. And right now, we are watching those whose lives and work are built on sand.
Crumble.
There's no foundation because the foundation is this. When you can be, I talked to a man recently who was jailed for something he did not do, but what he had to do was do a plea deal. Because, by the way, the justice system, there's not much justice there. He'd do a plea deal. He didn't have the money to fight it for the next 10 years. So he took the plea deal so he would do 4 months in prison. Okay. So he gets in there and he's lying on a mattress that smells and the whole thing. And outside of his cell, the inmates are doing Bible study. And he said there was something about it that he couldn't go any lower. He couldn't go any lower in his life. And these men outside of his cell doing Bible study, man, it takes you right to what is the most important. Your rock, your foundation, it's in you. It's not out there. And so every time you do affirmations, vision boards, all of that, and it's not coming true, it's because, what do they say? Rejection is God's protection. Each of us is made in the image of God. Each of us has this amazing fractal power within us. That's what Emmanuel means, God in us, which now we're in Advent, the season of Advent. So we're celebrating that. But we've been taught that God is anywhere except here.
Yeah.
Like, don't look here. So what do we have? So we have the narcissists and the borderlines and the psychopaths who act like they are God. It's an interesting dynamic because when you have one in your life, they're usually larger than life. You can't take your eyes off them. They're exciting. So we all of us empath types, are healer types. We have to really look inside at the way in which we habitually give our power away. And our lives have to be led from not just the neurology of the heart. And by the way, the heart has a 5,000 times larger electromagnetic field than the head.
Yeah.
What we do in the Ivy League and, New England, where I'm from, we're all about the intellect and but, the heart is where you need to live from, but you need to make your decisions from your gut. Because if you're an empath, you can't trust your heart either. Why? We see the good in everyone. We give them so much rope. It's unbelievable when I think about in my own life how much life energy I have leaked toward fixer-uppers who have an abyss inside because they're not connected to their soul. I was just listening to someone showed me the performer Jelly Roll, who I did not know about until very recently. This guy was a rapper, weighed, God knows, 300 pounds, tattoos on the face, found God, and is now going up on the charts and big concerts everywhere. But he had 4 prisoners come to perform in his latest show. These guys were unbelievable. When you find that true power and you can bring it out, it uplifts everybody. But what does the darkness glom onto? It's an interesting planet. We're on a gangster planet. What does the darkness hold on to? It goes for the light. So anyone who's really powerful, light-filled being is probably going to have had some run-ins with some darkness.
Yeah.
And when I wrote Dodging Energy Vampires, and I looked at my own life, I'd say, okay, well, this one, it took 24 years to wake up. This one only took me 3 years. This was 12. Now I can sort of see them coming, but not always. Remember, we talked about there's that subgroup of people who have literally blindness about how the darkness operates. You give everyone the benefit of the doubt. You don't see it coming. And so we need a group of others to show us, as Diane, who's worked with me forever and ever, amen, she goes, yeah, I knew that. It's like, well, okay, you don't get credit for telling me now. You only get credit for saying it before things start to unravel.
Would you have listened? That's probably what she's thinking. Would you have listened to me?
No, what I've told her now is I've told her, I will listen to you. In the past, I wouldn't. I'd make excuses. I will listen to you. Yeah, because the minute I'm trying to make excuses for somebody, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. And I want to say with all my humanity, I am no different from anyone else. The only difference is I was born in the year of the ox. So I plod along. It's like slow but relentless. So,
Wow. Yeah, while you were talking, I actually was checking out the name of the psychologist because you're talking about a very specific set of of narcissists, especially when they have this malignant intuition and they know
Yeah,
exactly what they're looking for. But I don't know
yeah.
if are you familiar with Dr. Ramani Durvasala? Oh, Durvasala, sorry.
No.
So
Mm-mm.
she's a psychologist and she specializes in narcissists. And she was on an interview and she was saying there are 6 types of narcissistic characters and behaviors. One
Yeah,
is which, the malignant really just knows what he's going for and is going to, like, dry their victims properly.
yeah.
But then there are also other kind of narcissists, like the victim narcissist that is always, complaining and they don't do anything. And we kind of classify the behavior more like, okay, you're toxic and you're in victim mode, but we never before associated that with narcissistic behavior. So she's a very interesting psychologist. She looks at it in a very, I mean, in a very scientific way, in a very good way, but at the same time, really like made me sad because I'm like, oh my god, it feels like there's no hope for people. What are we gonna do? And kind of also thinking we all narcissistic. What's going on?
Well, I think we all have healthy narcissism.
Okay.
And she's absolutely correct. A good narcissist will always run for the victim position.
Mm.
Always. You're always doing it to them. They don't take responsibility for their behavior. But you can always tell an empath. They're always the ones who are worried that they're a narcissist. The
Yeah, you
narcissist
said.
has no insight. So they will always say that they're the victim. They're the victim of everything. And then if you're an empath, you want to help, but they never change. What I love though,
Yeah.
what I love, we've recently found out that Sigmund Freud, who came up with the term penis envy, like the Freudian this and that,
Yeah.
he was a pedophile. His whole family were pedophiles. Who were the patients? Women who were being sexually abused by their fathers. So
Yeah.
what did Freud do? Turned it around so that, well, the women were really in love with their fathers. So think about this. He created the underpinnings of modern psychology. Oh, he was also a cocaine addict, so there's that.
Oh, that's nothing.
Yeah, yeah, the underpinnings of modern
Yeah.
psychology, saying that women who had hysteria and who were being sexually abused were really in love with their fathers and wished that they were men. How sick is that? I mean, I don't know if you've ever known anyone. I've known people who were going to their analyst in New York City, for 30 years. Ann Wilson Schaaf, God love her, who wrote When Society Becomes an Addict, she said, I'll be back in 3 years. Let's see if anyone's any better. So now you said there's no hope for anyone. The truth is there is always hope, always hope. But there's a very famous painting of Jesus standing at a door. And lo, I stand at the door knocking. I remember seeing it at a funeral when I was a little girl. There's no knob on the door. There's no latch. There's no nothing. Why? The door can only be opened from the inside.
Mhm.
That's the person themselves. George Simon wrote In Sheep's Clothing, a wonderful book about personality disordered people. And he said, yes, they can get better. It's called contrition. And he saw it, he said, in prisons where guys would finally, in their 60s, let's say, look at themselves in the mirror and say, oh my God, I see who I've been. And I am broken into a million pieces, and I will spend the rest of my life making up for it. Now, what Simon says is the problem with telling an empath that there's a chance for the narcissist. Once we know that, you remember in that movie Dumb and Dumber, there's a scene where he wants to date this woman, and she says to him, there's the chance of me going out with you is 1 in a million. And he goes, so you're telling me there's a chance? Okay. So when we think that there's a chance, because we live on hope. And so if you think that there's one chance, what you will do is think that you have to do something to make that a reality. That's where we get hung up, right at that little thing where you realize, no, you don't have to do anything. It's their job to make it up to you. So I want you to think, everybody, of those romantic movies. I think one is Cinema Paradiso, where the guy just stands out in front of her house in the rain, and he's there over and over and over until she comes out. See, what we women have been taught, we've been taught we're supposed to be like men and
Yeah.
we're supposed to make it happen. So we now see what's great about someone who's been around a while like me. I was there at the beginning of the modern feminist movement. And I saw how necessary the movement was in some regard, but of course it overshot. So who was the face of it? Gloria Steinem, beautiful woman, had been a Playboy bunny. And then you'd read about her life, and there was no food in her refrigerator. And she finally marries the man of her dreams. He dies of cancer, like, months later. And so what we've done, we women have gotten the job and the power and the whole thing, but we don't have love and we don't have true fulfillment and happiness. I mean, think about it. How did we talk two generations of women out of having babies? What is the coolest thing in your life? Watching little kids grow up. I mean, my daughter sends me pictures of my granddaughters and, watching the Thanksgiving Day parade. And, that's like where life gets really fulfilling. Or I listen to Tucker Carlson and he says, my wife and I lay in bed and we just love on our dogs who are sleeping on our bed with their tongues hanging out. And he said, and it doesn't get any better than that. So I think that's our job too. It's like when you hit bottom, to look around and you just start with, what am I grateful for? I had a friend, Evie McDonald, who had ALS. She was diagnosed with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. This was years ago. And she said I was becoming a bowl of jello in a wheelchair. And she wanted to experience unconditional love just once in her life. And she realized it wasn't going to come from outside. She'd wheel herself over to the mirror and look in the mirror and start with one little part of her that she could love. She started with her eyebrows. And every day she would do this. And eventually the ALS went away.
What?
Yeah,
Wow.
went away. This was a diagnosis. So she and her group did a 4-university study on ALS, which they funded themselves. They would take no funding from Big Pharma. And they used 4 hospitals. And they found out that indeed ALS, which has no known cause and no known cure, the course of the disease, the experience of the person with it, was altered by their belief system. So if they weren't depressed and if they had hope, many of them lived far longer than they were supposed to. Her study was supposed to be published in the New England Journal of Medicine, or JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association, and they were promised. But once the editors of those journals saw the results, they said, we can't publish this. This flies in the face of everything we believe to be true, that we have agency over the physiology of our bodies. So they
Yeah.
didn't publish it. And it ended up in the archives of neurology. I think it's January of 1998, if anyone wants to look it up. But you will notice, I've just noticed, Google has scrubbed all of those studies. Yeah. So that's the system that I was talking about.
Yeah.
So anything, all right, so here's what's happening right now, this very moment here on Earth. We humans are remembering who we are. So the system, the darkness, the sort of global narcissist is working overtime to disappear the evidence of who we really are as human beings.
The biggest form of gaslighting. But what are you talking about? That doesn't exist.
That's it. What do you mean? That's it. We've all been gaslit, and
Yeah.
we've been gaslit our whole lives.
Yeah.
How exciting that we even have a term for it, that it's sort of seeping down.
Yeah.
And, you're not born with a Zoloft deficiency. You're not born with a Prozac deficiency or a Xanax deficiency. You know the number of people who are on something? Oh my God. I mean, how are you going to think straight if you're constantly, and by the way, this myth, I have a chemical imbalance. No, you don't. Well, although you probably do. You probably have insulin levels that are too high, stress hormone levels that are too high, and all of those things are absolutely dependent on your own thoughts and your own behavior and your own diet and whether or not you move your body.
And
As
with this, I just have to ask a question. What if it's a very young person that still hasn't developed the intelligence, I guess, to see that, they don't have an imbalance, but like choices that they make every day. I'm talking about literally pre-teenage years.
the pre-teenage years, okay, those years are absolutely crucial. Why? Because what puberty does, when those hormones of puberty come on board, they myelinate the nerves in the brain. So you go from, think about children. So 6, 7, 8, 9 before puberty, they love their parents. They like to be with you. They're, many of times they'll have more joy going on playing with a cardboard box than with any big toy that you get them, because their imaginations are unbelievable. Okay. But then all those different choices, which are all these different neural pathways, then start to get wired into place in puberty. So what we need in our culture, which we don't have, but which parents can set up, we need rites of passage. All traditional tribes, indigenous tribes, have had rites of passage for their adolescent. What do we have? The frickin' eighth grade. You shouldn't even be putting you shouldn't even be putting kids together at that age.
Yeah.
First of all, the girls become vicious. The girls become vicious. They're like, they're eating their young.
Mm.
And so for a while, if you are an empath or if you are kind of an old soul, you won't have any friends for a while. Later, this is like, okay, you go back to your high school reunion and the captain of the football team is fat and all of the rest of it. But the nerd with the glasses is running the Fortune 500 company, right? It's that. So if you can get through that time without, and Brene Brown just had the most wonderful thing on Instagram, and her research showed the difference between fitting in and belonging. So what has to happen during those pre-times? They need environments where they belong. But what we're taught is how to fit in to a frankly satanic system that is now going to suck your lifeblood from that moment on. So what I went through in adolescence, because everyone's going to go through something, because that's the beginning of the dark night of the soul. Remember, perimenopause is adolescence in reverse. So and life, here's the beauty. Life keeps giving us one chance after another to upgrade ourselves. When you say, well, I missed my ship came in, but I missed it. Don't worry, there's going to be another one. That's the way it is with life. There's
Cycle.
a
Yeah.
constant opportunity, right? So if you didn't get it, I got plantar fasciitis, my eyeballs warped with astigmatism and myopia. I was sick for a year. I couldn't lose weight. I thought I was too fat. On and on and on and on and on and on, right? It went into my physical body. But for others, it's the mean girl stuff in school. That's why you want to get adolescents involved in, I mean, I'm not such a fan of the sports that take place in school because they pull you away from your family life. On the other hand, having that experience of exhausting physical activity and a goal is a very good place to go when your brain is being permanently wired. There are like way worse things that you could be doing. So, but a friend of mine visited an Amish farm. He said he's there at the doorway. A couple of kids come out and they get a team of horses all tacked up. Two more little kids come out. They get all the eggs in a barn. And these kids are skilled by the age of 12, 13. They can run a team of horses, they can plow a field, they can, I mean, we're capable of that. So what we're going to have to do, because by the way, in case you haven't noticed, a lot of the institutions in our country are falling apart. That's Pluto in Capricorn was power over, but now we've got Pluto in Aquarius as of November 19th. So we're just at the beginning. And all of these institutions are just crumbling. So we're all going to have the opportunity to learn how to put the harnesses on some work horses and go out and work in a field, like something real, farming, teaching. Like right now, kids are not learning cursive in school, and there's a whole group that can't even read it. If you look at the Declaration of Independence, it is written
In cursive.
beautifully in this cursive. And by the way, they didn't have whiteout and they didn't have save as. Think about what that is, that skill level in your brain. So if we
Attention.
could be learning how to take what's in here and put it out in physical form. We are here to create heaven on earth. And we do it by doing something in the world. So we all need a place where we're doing something in the world. And, that could be cooking. It could be beautifying your home. It could be gardening. But we're here. We're actually here to be God's hands and feet and eyes and see what we can do in the 3D world. And because it's a gangster planet, you're going to really grow here. I mean, this is a hard one.
Yeah. Everybody get a passy.
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Okay. This is a lot to unpack because again, we talk about the physical so much because obviously we want to know what are the actionable steps, but like the way that you are unraveling is very much deep work, facing the trauma, looking at darkness, the dark night of the soul, which I know we call it dark, but actually really is like our best friend. Because I think it's like at that point, you can decide there and then if you're going to grow, you're going to stay the same person and you will suffer, inevitably. But I think there is also like, there's also that part of like working on our self-love. And one thing that I see, we all want to do the good work. Like we all want to, come out of something that is traumatic or just painful. That it's a change, and change is always very painful anyway. And I've noticed that a lot of the times when I speak to women, whether they're working with me or they're just friends, I mean, I'm meeting so many in one way or another. I'm trying to create different ecosystems where women can come together, and whether they're entrepreneurs or they are just going through these changes and their life. I feel like the theme is also like, but where, like, I want to take responsibility for everything so that I can become a better person. But
Yeah.
where do I, where are the boundaries here? Because of course, people that, whether it's in your family, so other women, men, or people that you potentially could be partnered with, they will always kind of point out something that you do wrong and something that is wrong with you. And so they really, I think a lot of women are confused as to when do we know that there is something really that we have to work on, or something that really other people aren't working on and they're just projecting onto us, so they will blame us so they don't have to go there.
That's right. What I would do is just pick one area of your life. And frankly, we all have a body, all right? So what I would focus on, no matter who it is, no matter where you are, focus on creating a strong, flexible, healthy body. No one can fault you for that. And of course, if you have a bunch of friends who are out of shape, who are drinking too much alcohol and all of that, please remember that this is human nature. Here's what they'll do. It's the crabs in the bucket. They see one crab getting out and above it, and they'll pull the other crabs back in. So
Yeah.
you might find that you are, as you're moving from one part of your life to the next, it's a it's a solo journey for a while because you got your frequency here, but where you want to go is here. And so you have to do this pathway. You're looking around because it's normal. This is what little kids do. Hey, mom, watch me. Hey, mom, watch me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but nobody is watching you. So you have to just go a little bit at a time. You're kind of blindfolded. I mean, what I did, I'll just give you one little tiny example. I'd always wanted to learn to partner dance. And then I finally realized that's not going to happen unless I make something happen. So I have to, so I'd go in and I'd look in the window at Main Ballroom Dance, and finally, I took some private lessons, and then I finally had the courage to go in. And let's be clear, everybody. By this time, I've been on Oprah a bunch of times. I got New York Times bestsellers. And to get my body into a dance studio where I knew nobody, and there were not enough men to dance with. And I went in, and it would be dark, and Congress Street in Portland, not great. And I still would make myself do it. Now, that ended up with 9 years of an entire wonderful community of dancers, completely rewired my body to be able to receive the lead of a man or a woman. But so what my advice would be, do something that is embodied. Right now, my daily thing is 10,000 steps of walking a day. And I listen to podcasts and I love it. And so that's the current thing. And Pilates twice a week, because Pilates, nothing gets in the body like classical Pilates. So do something in your physical body, because here's the big thing that you're going to come up against, all women. And that is, well, at this age, I remember this. I'd see women, their waist was gone, and then they had the truncal obesity and all of that stuff. And I would say, God, is this inevitable? Like, because I'm noticing everybody's bodies are changing this way. And then I discovered, like I wanted to, no, that's not inevitable. That's because we stop doing all these things. The muscles are still there. The physique is still there. I want people to find examples of what they want to become. Another thing that I did way back then was look for women in their 50s who had gotten remarried. Yeah. Just look for that. And so always look outside yourself for the thing that you're told doesn't exist and you can't have. So what I always say, one swallow does not make a spring, but if there's a swallow there, It's there.
Mm-hmm.
So we're always taught, oh, no, no, don't be unreasonable. I'm good friends with Dr. Mario Martinez, who teaches what's called centenarian consciousness. He studies 700 people over the age of 100 all over the world. It's the fastest growing demographic that there is, people over 100 who are healthy centenarians. They think entirely differently. Or as Ellen Langer, professor emeritus at Harvard, has a book, and the subtitle is Thinking Your Way to Chronic Health. So you got to think outside the box. You've got to think differently. And if you're following along, okay, so first thing I would do, don't ever, just don't ever listen to mainstream media.
Yeah.
Don't listen to any of it, any mainstream media or mainstream newspapers, because it's all what the darkness wants you to believe. So that, I mean, we're back to it's parasitic. It
Yes.
takes your life energy. But the cool part is that younger people, they don't care what's going on NBC, CBS, whatever.
True.
You know, I mean, the woman who helps me with the house, she goes, the only thing I have is TikTok. I said, well, there's great stuff on TikTok. You just have to curate your feed.
That's true. TikTok scares me, but it's true that you can
Yeah, I know.
curate your feed.
And that's true. That's true. But, you know, I mean, for me, I used to have these, you know, huge interactive channels on Instagram and
Yeah.
Facebook. And then that became, you know, there were many landmines on there. And so I
Yeah.
sort of said, oh, that's enemy territory. Um, Things are changing, however.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, so here
And
we are.
yeah. I have two more questions that I think we need to touch on before I know we're running out of time, but I really value your
Yeah.
input on this because it came up from the women that I sent the questions to about your interview. One was about divorce and through late 40s, early 50s, restarting again, but also especially when it came to finances, because a lot of them said I would have divorced 10 years ago. And probably I wouldn't divorce now if I wasn't at the point that I just couldn't take it anymore. But they struggle with understanding how to be financially independent. What
Yes.
should they do? Because it came up, I'm too old for this. I don't know if I can do it.
That was huge for me. So the first thing I did is I read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I thought I was going to lose the house. And I remember I had my plumber remove a faucet from my bathtub and take it to the dump, but the new one was $360. And I said, no, I made him go back to the dump and get the old one. Things, I was, man, financially right up against it. And so one of the things I learned from Kiyosaki, he said, anyone who wants to learn business, you've got to learn how business works. You need to know the cash flow quadrant. So self-employed, employed is taxed the most and works the hardest. Then over here is business owner and investor. So what I would say to people is begin to learn about owning a business, which could be a relationship marketing business, or learn about investing. Take a crypto course. My daughter and I we have a little business in gold and silver. She came back from New York and is now living in an attached apartment and had to make a living and had always worked temp jobs because she's an actress and a singer in New York. And so now she has a nice little income with teaching people about God's money, real money, gold and silver. So this is absolutely key. Like, how do you do how do you get back into business? And what I find is women are really good at relationships. So I'm a big fan of finding good relationship marketing companies with products that you love, that you would share anyway. You know, I just found another one, the Super Patch Company. I mean, what they're doing is unbelievable. So, but just learn about how money works. And then you will find, like anything you pay attention to, it expands. It expands. So just for me, that was the whole point of becoming financially literate,
Yeah.
because I left it all to my husband. So you begin to think of yourself as an economy. I am an economy. And, this is, here's an example of an economy. I have a friend who's a farmer. And yesterday he was processing some ducks and chickens because he said, I realized that this is what it takes to feed them. But this is what it takes if I sacrifice them and sell them to my friends who want healthy dog food. Okay? So it's an economy. You only have so much time and life energy. And increasingly, you want to become financially independent. So start to follow stories of women entrepreneurs who have created all kinds of cool things.
Yeah. And the other, so it's good because also your daughter, um, you have two and three, but I think two of them are
Yeah,
more
yeah. And
connected
Kate,
to.
yeah,
Kate, yeah,
that's right.
she
Kate
actually
is
works a
about
lot with
that.
women and money and time, right?
Yes, she does. Yes, she
Yeah,
does.
so I
Yes,
will
she
link
does.
her.
Yeah,
I will put a link
exactly.
to in the show notes. Um,
Great.
and then there is the other question that came up was about sex, because I feel like a lot of us feel like we can't talk about sex in our relationships. It's that taboo subject that if we speak to our husbands about it becomes like, what, why are you complaining? Like, I thought it was always good. But a lot of us are not satisfied sometimes. We just don't feel like our partners are really understanding our bodies. And then a lot of women say, since I am not married anymore and I have found a new partner, I remarried, like that was the first thing I wanted to talk about with them, because I didn't want to get back into a situation where I just didn't feel like my body was understood and I wasn't having pleasure. I felt like I was there to give them pleasure and I don't want that anymore. What's your take on that?
Right. Okay. Right there. Right there. I was there to give them pleasure, and I don't want that anymore. Okay. So here's what I want everyone to know. With reason, with good, they get more out of pleasing you than they get out of you pleasing them. When you become, okay, so let us remember, let's go right back to our most basic biology, and that is the egg attracts the sperm. Millions of sperm are swimming toward the egg, and the egg picks one.
Yeah.
And then when she picks that one, the egg has the ability to repair any minor genetic damage, which is why married men always look better than the other ones, because she's egging him on. And then when they do that journey, the 3-day journey down the fallopian tube as a spiral, the egg is providing the nourishment. Now, here's what I would suggest to all women. There is a book by Steve and Vera Bodansky called The Illustrated Guide to Extended Massive Orgasm. And when I was redoing Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, I remember I wanted to get updated on any research about sexuality. Then I later met and worked with Steve and Vera. Your job is to turn yourself on and live in that state, which is nitric oxide throughout the entire body. And when you, and I learned this from Mama Gina, Mama Gina's Womanly Arts, Mama Gina's 101, really, really good book. Also, Pussy, New Geography is really, really good. The female erotic anatomy is a GPS. It's a GPS. What turns you on is what you can trust. So we know things here, and we know things in our hearts, but where we really know them is in the female erotic anatomy. In my book, Goddesses Never Age, chapter 6 is all about the female erotic system. You need to become an absolute postdoctoral master of your own female erotic system. Then you change the conversation. So you become the egg again, and he becomes the sperm
Firm.
again, and you become irresistible. But so what you do, you catch him doing it right. You catch him doing it right. Men are so much simpler than women. We think that they're women. They're not women. You just give them, when they're doing something right. Oh yeah, I love that. Aunt Mama Gina calls that man training. Man training. What? I'd love it if you did. They do it. You say thank you. That's man training. And we women have become so full of criticism for what men are not doing right. Do you know that we've created like 2 generations of men who are afraid to open a door for you? Oh my God. Men love, okay, when I started to teach at Mama Gina's School of Womanly Arts, I did not know that men want to please women. I had no idea. Why? Because I'm competing in a world where we're in work, we're both together. So I didn't know. When I learned that secret, oh my God, the world just changed. So you can, you're not going to become some borderline bitch, but man, it is a wonderful thing to look at the way in which men want to serve you, but you have to become worthy of being served. So get that illustrated guide to extended massive orgasm, and then I want you to practice. There's an exercise in there called visiting dignitary. And I won't tell you what it is, but I'll tell you what, it will change your life, because you need to understand that your sex life with yourself is primary. Then you can invite someone else in.
Thank you.
And it's just biofeedback. It's biofeedback. You rewire your whole body.
That is so important, because then, as you know, there are some groups, especially religious groups, that will prevent a woman from exploring her body. And I think that's problematic. If we don't know what, like a lot
Very
of women don't
problematic.
know what their clitoris is.
Well, think about that. Okay, God gives you this body, right? You got a clitoris with 40,000 nerve endings whose entire function is pleasure. But then there's more. There is the perianal sponge and the periurethral sponge, and then there's the cruri going down the labia. I mean, there's as much erotic erectile tissue in your pelvis as a man has, but his is all external. Yours is internal.
Yeah.
So the G spot, the sacred spot, goes right up to the pineal gland.
Yeah.
What? I mean, it is sacred. It's sacred. So that's the other thing. I mean, start to see this as a temple for the Holy Spirit. So you're just not letting anyone in.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of energy.
Good. Yeah.
You have a brand that we spoke about on the first interview, Amata, and I had a question. Can we take this beautiful herbal supplement with HRT?
Yes, but usually women find they don't need the HRT once they have enough of the Praeria mirifica in their bodies. I will also say the vaginal gel is like nothing else on the market.
Yeah.
It literally reawakens the entire female erotic system.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we will put the links for that there. Is it possible to get it outside the US?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yep.
Well, Dr. Northrup, I could talk to you forever. I mean, there's so much to cover. We're gonna have to get you back on, because it's so multi-layered and dimensional because of the way that women are. We're just not one dimension.
Right.
And there are always questions, and I think we are in really a time where women are feeling that they are allowed to ask questions and to explore, but it's really scary to do that when we feel
all
like
of
there's
it is
nobody.
scary.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, when you don't have the neural pathways, it's all scary.
Yeah.
So then you find some support and you walk through that wall of fire. And it is the feminine that is leading now in where we are going, because the feminine has been put down for so long and perverted and all the rest of it. So that's where we're going. And each one of us that does just this little work of, this is what I want. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
So see you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Northrup, and thank you everyone for listening on. I'm so excited that this episode was so good. I mean, there was so much to cover. I just felt like we couldn't have done it in such a short time, but hopefully we will have Dr. Northrup back again. In any case, I wanted to say that if you want to learn more about Dr. Northrup and also listen to the old episodes, go into the show notes. I've also linked Dr. Northrup's daughter, Kate Northrup, into the episode, because if you're a woman looking to manage your time and finances better, she has amazing resources and that's what she works on. So guys, I'm really looking forward to seeing you next week, and please, as always, if you're listening to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, or wherever you're listening on, please do put reviews, help us grow, share it with your friends, talk about us on social media, and tag me at Live Lean Health. See you next week. Bye.